Kraven's claws clicked nervously against the metal door panel as he entered his home. The shift at the spaceport had been long, nearly 12 hours of checking cargo and scanning vessels. His body ached, but he felt a familiar warmth thinking about his 3 hatchlings waiting inside. They would be hungry and excited to see him. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Kraven stepped into the dim living space and froze. Something was wrong. The air felt too still, too quiet. Usually by now he would hear the soft chirping sounds of his babies calling for him. "Little ones," he called out in the clicking language of his people. "Father is home." Silence. Kraven's heart began to beat faster. He moved quickly to the nesting room, his tail dragging behind him in growing worry. The heat lamps were still on, casting their warm orange glow over the sleeping nest. But the nest was empty. The soft blankets he had arranged so carefully that morning lay undisturbed. His 3 albino hatchlings were gone. For a moment, Kraven could not move. He stared at the empty nest, hoping his eyes were playing tricks on him. His hatchlings were pale, almost white, unlike the dark green scales of normal SS Karath children. They stood out everywhere they went. They were precious to him, all he had left after his mate died during their hatching. He searched every corner of the small home. Under tables, inside cabinets, behind the food storage units. Nothing. No signs of his babies anywhere. The windows were sealed from the inside. The door showed no damage. How could they simply vanish? Kraven grabbed his communication device with shaking hands and contacted the Colonial Security Office. Within 20 minutes, officers arrived at his home. Both humans and SS Karath walked through his rooms, asking questions, taking notes. They found nothing useful. "How old are they?" asked a human officer with kind eyes. 6 seasons, Kraven replied, struggling to speak the human language clearly. "Still very young. They cannot survive alone for long." The officer nodded and wrote something down. "We'll search the entire district. Don't worry, we'll find them." But days passed with no news. Kraven could not eat. He could barely sleep. Search teams walked through every street, knocked on every door, checked every building in the SS Karath district. Other members of his species came to his home with food and sympathy, but Kraven barely noticed them. 1 week became 2 weeks. The official search parties began to slow down. The colonial authorities told him gently that after this much time, the chances of finding the hatchlings alive were small. The nights on New Havana grew cold and his babies needed warmth. They needed special food. They needed care. Kraven refused to believe they were gone forever. Every day after his work shift, he walked the streets, showing pictures of his pale hatchlings to anyone who would look. Most people shook their heads sadly. Some offered words of comfort that meant nothing to him. His human co-workers at the spaceport were different, though. They did not tell him to give up. They brought him hot drinks and took extra shifts so he could search. One of them, an older woman named Sarah, squeezed his shoulder one evening. "My son went missing once when he was small," she said quietly. "I found him 3 miles from home, asleep in a stranger's garden. Don't stop looking." Those words gave Kraven new strength. He began searching beyond the colony's main districts. He walked to the edges of the settlement, where the buildings ended and the farmland began. He asked farmers and agricultural workers if they had seen anything strange. On the 15th day, an old farmer mentioned something. "Saw some little pale creatures near the orchards last week," he said, scratching his beard. "Thought they were some kind of local animal." They headed toward the Chin girl's place. Kraven's heart jumped. "Where is this place?" The farmer pointed toward the horizon. "East side. Isolated homestead. Young human girl lives there alone." Finally, after 2 weeks of darkness, Kraven had a direction. He would go there at first light. Kraven barely slept that night. He lay in his empty home, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what the farmer had said. Little pale creatures near the orchards. It had to be his hatchlings. It had to be. Before the sun rose, he was already walking east. The path took him away from the busy colony center, past the last rows of SS Karath homes, and into the human agricultural district. The air smelled different here, sweet with growing things. Fruit trees lined the roads, their branches heavy with produce. He walked for nearly an hour. His feet hurt and his tail dragged in the dust, but he did not stop. Finally, he saw a small house in the distance. It sat alone on a hill, surrounded by neat rows of fruit trees. Smoke rose from a chimney. Someone was home. Kraven's steps slowed as he got closer. What would he find here? Were his hatchlings safe? Or had something terrible happened to them? His claws flexed nervously at his sides. He reached the front gate just as the sun began to brighten the sky. The property was well maintained. The trees were healthy, the ground clean. A small garden grew near the house with vegetables and flowers mixed together. It looked peaceful. Before he could knock, the door opened. A young human female stood there, holding a basket of fruit. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and wore simple farming clothes. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Oh," she said in clear but accented SS Karath language. "You must be their father." Kraven's heart nearly stopped. "You have them?" "My hatchlings are here." The girl nodded quickly. Yes, they're safe. Please come in. I've been trying to figure out how to contact you." She spoke more human language now, and Kraven struggled to follow. But he understood enough. His babies were alive. They were here. He followed her into the small house. It was modest but clean, filled with the warm smell of cooking food. The girl led him through a main room and toward a door at the back. "My name is Maya," she said over her shoulder. "I found them 2 weeks ago. They came to my orchard at night, I think looking for food. They were so thin and cold." She opened the door to a back room. Kraven stepped inside and felt his legs go weak. There, in a corner filled with blankets and cushions, were his 3 albino hatchlings. They were curled together, sleeping peacefully under a heat lamp. Their white scales gleamed in the soft light. They looked healthy, clean, and safe. "Little ones," Kraven whispered. He moved toward them, then stopped. Lying next to them, also asleep, was the human girl's bedding. A pillow, a thin blanket, and a data pad with notes. Maya saw him looking. "They get cold at night," she explained quietly. "The heat lamp helps, but they sleep better when I'm close. My body heat keeps them warm." Kraven turned to look at her. This stranger, this human he had never met, had been sleeping on the floor to keep his children warm. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Why would you do this?" Maya looked surprised by the question. "Because they needed help," she said simply. "They were babies, lost and scared. What else would I do?" She walked to a table and picked up a notebook. "I've been keeping records. Their feeding times, what they eat, their temperature readings. I researched SS Karath biology in the colony database. I bought supplements from the market. I wanted to make sure I was doing everything right." She handed him the notebook. Kraven looked at pages filled with careful notes and drawings. This girl had spent money she probably did not have much of. She had sacrificed her own comfort. She had studied his species to care for his children properly. "I tried to ask around the colony," Maya continued, "but I don't speak SS Karath well, and I was afraid if I contacted authorities they might think I stole them. I was waiting for someone to come looking." One of the hatchlings stirred and made a soft chirping sound. Kraven felt tears form in his eyes. His children were alive because of this human girl's kindness. The soft chirping grew louder. One of the hatchlings lifted its small head, blinking sleepy eyes. Then it saw Kraven standing there. The little one made a loud, happy sound and scrambled out of the nest of blankets. "Father! Father!" it chirped in the SS Karath language, running across the floor on unsteady legs. Kraven dropped to his knees and caught his baby in his arms. The hatchling was warm and solid and real. He pressed his snout against the small white head, breathing in the familiar scent. "You are safe," he whispered. "You are safe." The noise woke the other two. They tumbled out of the blankets, squeaking with excitement. Within moments, all 3 hatchlings were climbing on their father, chirping and clicking, trying to tell him everything at once. "We found fruits, father. Big sweet fruits. The human girl is nice. She makes warm food. We were lost but she found us." Kraven held them close, checking each one carefully. They were healthy. Their scales were clean and shining. They had gained weight. They were better than when he had last seen them. Maya stood near the door, watching with a small smile. She looked tired, Kraven noticed. There were dark circles under her eyes. How many nights had she given up her own sleep to care for his children? One of the hatchlings, the smallest female, suddenly pulled away from Kraven and ran to Maya. She wrapped her small arms around the human's leg. "Maya. Maya, this is our father." Maya laughed and picked up the hatchling, holding her gently. "I know, little one. I'm happy he found you." The hatchling touched Maya's face with small claws. "Will you still give us breakfast?" "Of course," Maya said. "Let me cook something for everyone." Kraven watched as his children followed Maya to the kitchen area like baby birds following their mother. They were completely comfortable with her. They trusted her. In his culture this would take months to build. Yet here they were, acting as if this human was part of their family. Maya began preparing food while the hatchlings sat at her feet, telling her about their father in excited voices. She cooked something that smelled strange but good. Then she pulled out containers from a cooling unit and began mixing a paste that Kraven recognized. It was a proper SSK Wrath supplement, expensive and difficult to get. "You bought this for them?" he asked. Maya nodded, not looking up from her work. "The database said hatchlings need it twice a day. I get paid for my fruit harvest next week, so I can buy more then." Kraven felt something break inside his chest. "You spent your money on my children." "They were hungry," Maya said simply, as if this explained everything. She served the food to the hatchlings, who ate eagerly. Then she handed a plate to Kraven. He took it but did not eat. "In my culture," he said slowly, "keeping another's offspring without permission is a serious crime. I should be angry with you." Maya's face went pale. "I didn't mean to." "But I am not angry," Kraven continued. "You saved their lives. You cared for them when they had no one. You gave them warmth and food and safety." He paused, struggling with the human words. "You gave them love." Maya looked down at the hatchlings. The smallest one had climbed into her lap and was eating there, content and happy. "I lost my family 2 years ago," she said quietly. "My parents and brother. Shuttle accident. I know what it feels like to be alone and scared. When I found these little ones in my orchard, so frightened and cold, I couldn't leave them." "They were lost for 3 days before they found you," Kraven said. "They do not know the way home. They wandered too far during playing." Maya smiled sadly. "They told me. They kept saying they wanted their father. I tried everything to help them find you." Kraven looked at this human girl, barely more than a hatchling herself, who had sacrificed so much for strangers. "Thank you," he said, and the words felt too small. "Thank you for saving my children." They ate breakfast together on the floor of Maya's small home. The hatchlings moved between their father and Maya, comfortable with both. Kraven watched how Maya cut their food into small pieces without being asked. She knew exactly how much each one liked to eat. She wiped the smallest one's face when she made a mess. After eating, Maya showed Kraven her notebook again. She had written down everything. What time each hatchling woke up. What foods they preferred. How long they needed under the heat lamp. When they got tired or cranky. There were even drawings of them playing in her garden. "This one," Maya pointed to the largest male, "likes to climb trees. I had to watch him carefully. He climbed too high once and got scared." "That sounds like him," Kraven said, feeling his throat tighten. She knew his children. Really knew them. Maya turned more pages. "This one sings when she is happy. And the little one, she has bad dreams sometimes. I hold her until she falls asleep again." Kraven put his head in his hands. "I do not understand," he said. "My people, we are taught that humans are too different. That we cannot understand each other. That you are cold and focused only on profit." "Some humans are like that," Maya admitted. "Some SSK Wrath probably are too. But not all of us." She sat down next to him and the hatchlings climbed into both their laps, making a small pile. "When I saw them that first night, I didn't see alien children. I just saw scared babies who needed help. That's all." "But you are alone," Kraven said. "You work hard for little money. You could not afford to feed extra mouths. Yet you did." Maya was quiet for a moment. "After my family died, I wanted to die too," she said softly. "I was so lonely. This farm was my parents' dream, and I kept it going because I didn't know what else to do. Every day was the same. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. No purpose. No joy." She stroked the smallest hatchling's head gently. "Then these 3 appeared. Suddenly I had a reason to wake up. Someone needed me. I wasn't alone anymore." She looked at Kraven with wet eyes. "They saved me as much as I saved them." Kraven understood then. This was not about species or culture or differences. This was about connection. About need meeting need. About loneliness finding companionship. "My mate died when they hatched," he told her. "It is not common for one parent to raise hatchlings alone in our culture. Other families help, but I was too proud. Too stubborn. I worked long hours to provide for them, but I was not home enough. That is why they wandered too far. I was not there." "You did your best," Maya said firmly. "You work hard for them. They talk about you constantly. About how strong you are, how you protect the whole colony at the spaceport. They are proud of their father." The hatchlings chirped in agreement, not understanding the heavy conversation but feeling the emotion. Kraven looked around the small room. At the makeshift nest Maya had built. At the heat lamp she had installed. At the careful notes and the expensive food supplements. At this young human who had given everything to help his children. "You are a good mother," he said, using the human word. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not their mother. Perhaps not by blood, Kraven said, but by action, by choice, by love. Is that not what makes family? The largest hatchling stood up suddenly. Maya is family, he announced. And father is family. We are all family. The other two chirped their agreement loudly. Maya laughed through her tears. Kraven felt something warm spread through his chest. His children were right. Something new had formed here. Something that crossed the space between species. I cannot take them from you, he said. They love you. And I cannot keep them from you, Maya replied. They need their father. Then we must find another way, Kraven said. They looked at each other and slowly both began to smile. The solution came together slowly over the next few hours. Kraven wanted to take his hatchlings home immediately, but every time he mentioned leaving, the children became upset. They clung to both him and Maya, crying that they did not want to choose. What if, Maya said carefully, I came to visit them? Every few days? I could help you care for them. Kraven considered this. The SSK Rath district is far from here. The walk takes hours. You have your farm to manage. I can manage, Maya said, but she looked tired just thinking about it. The smallest hatchling tugged on Kraven's arm. Why can't Maya live close to us? Kraven and Maya looked at each other. The same thought crossed both their minds. There is land near my home, Kraven said slowly. Empty land. The colony sells it cheap to encourage farming in that area. Maya's eyes widened. I could move my farm? I could help you build, Kraven offered. I know construction. Many of my friends do too. And SSK Rath agricultural methods are different from human ones. I could teach you. Your harvest might double. Maya sat back thinking hard. My parents built this farm. Leaving it feels like leaving them. Or, Kraven said gently, you could be starting something new. Something they would be proud of. A bridge between our peoples. The hatchlings began bouncing excitedly. Maya lives near us. Maya lives near us, they chanted. Maya looked at their happy faces and smiled. Okay, she said. Let's try. The next 3 months were busy. Maya sold her isolated farm to another human family. With that money and Kraven's help, she bought land next to his home. Kraven and his co-workers built her a new house on weekends. It was small but comfortable, with a proper kitchen and a guest room that the hatchlings immediately claimed as Maya's room at our house. Maya planted new trees and started her orchard again. Kraven taught her SSK Rath farming techniques that used less water but produced sweeter fruit. Her first harvest in the new location was the best she had ever grown. The hatchlings thrived. They spent mornings with their father and afternoons helping Maya in her orchard. She taught them human language and customs. Kraven taught them SSK Rath traditions and history. They became the first truly bilingual children in the colony. Other SSK Rath families noticed. They saw how happy and healthy Kraven's children were. They saw how the human girl cared for them with such patience and love. Slowly they began to ask questions. Could the human girl watch my hatchling for an afternoon? One mother asked. I have important work. Maya agreed. Then another parent asked. And another. Within 6 months, Maya was running an unofficial childcare service. She had SSK Rath hatchlings and human children playing together in her garden every day. She taught them all together, mixing both cultures. The children learned that different did not mean bad. That scales or skin, it did not matter. They were all just children. The colony council noticed the change. Human and SSK Rath parents talked more at pickup time. They shared meals. They helped each other. All because one lonely girl had shown kindness to 3 lost hatchlings. One evening, Kraven found Maya asleep in her garden. She was surrounded by a pile of sleeping children, both human and SSK Rath, all curled up against her in the warm afternoon sun. His 3 albino hatchlings were right in the center, holding onto her arms. Kraven sat down carefully and added himself to the pile. His smallest hatchling woke briefly and smiled at him. Best family ever, she whispered, then fell back asleep. Kraven looked at Maya, this remarkable human who had changed everything. She had taken his broken family and made it whole. She had taken 2 separated communities and brought them together. Not through politics or treaties but through simple kindness. Yes, little one, he whispered back. Best family ever. Above them, the sun set over New Havana, painting the sky in colors that both species found beautiful. And in that moment, the future looked bright.